Hello, welcome to the Leverton on Everything podcast. My name is Adam, and I talk about everything on this podcast. I talk about movies, television, politics, sometimes. Today I'm going to talk about the feud between Mark Maron and Joe Rogan. Mark Maron, younger people probably don't remember this, but Mark Maron was one of the first comedians who had a podcast. And he actually used the podcast to sort of revive his career. And he has this sort of like little intellectual, cynical kind of point of view as a comic. And I had watched his, or listened to his podcast rather, when it began, and I didn't like it. I don't know why. I just didn't like the guests, or actually, I didn't like his personality as an interviewer, so I didn't listen to it. And Joe Rogan is, I don't know if you don't know who Joe Rogan is, you're living under a rock, basically, because every time on YouTube Shorts or TikTok, they always have these, clips of him interviewing someone, and him like going, "Oh wow, I didn't know that ancient aliens created Antarctica." So basically, Joe Rogan is the intellectual equivalent of Pablum, and Mark Maron pretends to be somewhat more intellectual. And Mark Maron recently criticized Joe Rogan for basically creating this. He didn't say it directly, but I think it is kind of a cult. Like a specific cult of specific kind of comedians, and this is the only sort of comedian that people listen to now. And they're usually very right wing, and they're in this like manosphere kind of thing. And it's kind of weird for me thinking about it, because I think that there were politically active comics, but it wasn't the majority of comics. Like maybe George Carlin was very interested in politics, but the other ones were more interested in social issues. And it's kind of funny how, like, as I said, I don't like either one of them. I'm not a big fan of Mark Maron, and I'm not a big fan of Joe Rogan for different reasons. But Mark Maron's point was basically like, if you created this ecosystem of comedy, like there's two problems with it. One, it's very easy to be abused and taken advantage of by grifters like Donald Trump, which is one thing, but that's not the point of this video that I wanted to talk about. The other thing is that he said that there are no interesting voices in comedy anymore, because everybody is trying to emulate this whole Austin scene and Joe Rogan and that. And I completely agree with that point. There's no... I think that there are very interesting comedians, but when I had TikTok, I deleted TikTok. There was this one guy, I forgot what his name was, but his jokes were just so weird and funny. And I think that that's what's lacking. Like, people say, like, oh, people are too offended and you can't offend anybody anymore. And that's not true. Like, these comedians are making like a lot of money telling like these lowbrow offensive jokes. And I think that there is a way to do dark humor where it's funny and not racist and sexist and all of that. And I think like if you're a comedian and you're a bit of an idiot, you'll tell those racist and sexist jokes, and you'll be like, yeah, I'm like my own man, I'm a figure of free speech or whatever. But if people aren't laughing, it's not funny. I mean, so one guy comes to mind, Anthony Jeselnik. He tells jokes which are really quite, they're dark, but funny, So they're really like intelligently well constructed. So he thinks about like the whole story of the joke and you get to the punchline and you're like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't be laughing about that, but that's funny. Like offensive jokes can be funny. Like, here's an offensive joke. What do you call a woman with one leg? Eileen. That's an offensive joke, right? But kind of funny. So, but if you made an entire career of jokes like that, then I don't know. I don't know how to like express what I mean exactly. I think like I'm not the funniest person in the world, and I am not like an expert in stand-up comedy or whatever, but I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I know like those kind of unique voices are the ones that people remember. And if you think about it, I don't think that somebody, Robin Williams, people will accuse him of stealing jokes or whatever, but he had a very unique comedic style, right? Like bum 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 bum. Nobody does that anymore. Norm Macdonald, very unique comedic style. Nobody does that anymore. Even I was thinking about like, you remember this Great British show, and it had an American version with also great comedians called Whose Line Is It Anyway? I would put like I would be really amused to have Joe Rogan, Kill Tony, and those comedic comics like that on that show, because I think that they couldn't do it. I think that they don't have the intellectual capabilities of being funny in improv, right? And some people work a long time in their like. That's not. I'm not being very coherent, but it's not a bad thing to write and work on your jokes if they're funny jokes, if they show the world in a new way or make people laugh at themselves or each other. But like, ha ha ha, you're black and I'm white and that's funny. That's not funny. That's just a fact, Like, oh, black people like watermelon and chicken. Ha 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 ha. I like watermelon and chicken. That's not funny. It's just a fact. Watermelon and chicken are good. And if you think like only black people like watermelon and chicken, then, it's a bit racist. So, yeah, there's a dearth of original voices in comedy. And I think that maybe it's not just Joe Rogan and the Austin scene that's created that. There's sort of this whole like the way the media is now, that you have to have a podcast, it has to be successful, you have to do crowd work, the comedy is in like short digestible bites that are on TikTok or YouTube or something. So I don't think it's necessarily just Joe Rogan's fault, but it certainly doesn't help. And going back to the beef between Mark Maron and Joe Rogan, it's kind of funny because like people were like not, and so the other thing that Maron talked about is like this tribalism in politics and tribalism in comedy. So he says this like, I think comedy is too tribal. If something is funny, you should laugh. And then you get all of these comments under the videos saying, oh yeah, well, you're washed up and your podcast wasn't very successful, or it was successful when podcasts weren't huge, and Joe Rogan is the man. And it's like, that's the point, right? We should live in a world where if Joe Rogan was funny, that's a big if, if Joe Rogan was funny, you could watch Joe Rogan, have a laugh, and watch Mark Maron and have a laugh. I think that's a big if too for both of them. I don't find either one of them funny, but that's just me. Although I did like his stand-up special better than his podcasting. Yeah, so if something is funny, and I think like another thing that as I get older, your time on this planet, your time in life is short. It's very, very short. And think about if you want to spread positive energy or negative energy. And it seems like a lot of these comics are like, I hate you. This is funny because I hate you. And my hatred for something is funny. Not that you have to be like super politically correct to be a comic. Because you don't. You just have to be good, right? That's the only requirement. If you're good, people will laugh. And I personally don't think that you should spend your time, full of hatred and stuff as a comedian. Maybe a little bit self-hatred. Maybe that's good. But just hating the world is a waste of time. There's so many other things you could be doing with your life than hating the world. One other thing. Like, I also don't like Jerry Seinfeld very much, but you can't argue that he was hugely successful and hugely influential. But he would not have a platform today. So he's not like this cool bro. He's not. So he wouldn't have this opportunity in 2025. Yeah, those are my kind of rambling thoughts about the Rogan versus Maron beef. What do you think? Do you think that podcasting specifically comedian podcasting is too tribal? Do you think that there's not enough voices, new, fresh, unique voices in comedy? Oh, and if you have any recommendations for any good, unique voiced comics, let me know. Put it in the comments and let people find these people, because, maybe there are. It's just really hard to find them because of the algorithm. Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks. I'll talk.